Hello everybody, my name is Necroxis. I wanted to talk about Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. So, if you're one of the few people who for some reason still subscribes to this channel, but also gets upset whenever I cover anything that's not WoW, I guess dislike the video and turn it off now, because, you know, hearing opinions about other games in the same genre, it must be hard for some people. Anyway, so, we're going to talk about spoilers, but at first I wanted to give a non-spoiler review. This will probably be very quickly because I can't really discuss a lot about it without spoiling it. So, my non-spoiler review is, this is the best that Final Fantasy XIV has ever been. It is a legitimately fantastic experience. I think it rivals and beats, in many cases, the single-player games in terms of story. I think the music is amazing. I think the writing is phenomenal. I think it has my now favorite Final Fantasy villain of all time. I think the two new jobs they introduce are very fun to play as, even if I've only scratched the surface of them. And I think overall, Shadowbringers should now be the gold standard to which every other MMO launch or expansion is compared to. I think it was simply phenomenal. I think it probably is the game of the year thus far for me, midway through 2019. And so that's my non-spoiler review. Alright. So, let's get a little bit into more specifics. We will be talking about the entire storyline, so if you haven't, please, if you're playing and you haven't finished it, please, 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 do not watch the rest of this video until you have done so. Finish the MSQ, the main story questline, and just, please, because it's amazing, and you should go into it spoiler-free, because it's truly phenomenal. I want to talk about the writer. The main head writer of this expansion is a woman. Let's see, I wrote her name down here. Is a woman named Natsuko Ishikawa. And apparently, I don't have a Dark Knight, but apparently she is the writer of the Dark Knight questline that's been in the game since Dark Knights were a thing. I've had everyone tell me constantly that the Dark Knight job questline is fantastic. I haven't done it yet. Now that I've finished Shadowbringers MSQ, I want to go and make a Dark Knight now. Because the writing in this expansion is just, between making the best villain the franchise has ever had, between callbacks to the rest of the storyline from an expansion or two expansions or three expansions ago, just everything about everything was just amazing in terms of the writing. I would give her the reins of this game for as long as it exists. I would ask Yoshi P, the developer, the producer of the game, who's now reportedly working on Final Fantasy XVI, take her with you! Take her with you and let her write Final Fantasy XVI. Because, holy shit, I have never cried more in a video game. I have never had so many, like, fuck yes moments in a video game. The writing is just superb. It's superb for a video game, but especially for an MMO. If you would have told me, like, you know, before this came out that Necroxis, an MMO expansion, will have the best story you've played in a couple years, I probably would punch you in the face because there was no way I would believe you. But that's it. Furthermore, before we get into actual specifics, the music. Holy cow, the music. I'm going to try and play a little bit of it underneath my audio here, but I can't make it too loud or this whole video will get claimed, but go look up the Shadowbringers OST on your own. It's the zone music, the dungeon music, the trial music, the final boss music, the main theme. It's so good. And the composer of this game is a man named Masayoshi Soken, I believe. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but Soken is his last name. He also worked on Heavensward and Stormblood, the last two expansions. He worked on the last two alongside Nobuo Uematsu, but this one was the only one where he was on his own. I really love Nobuo Uematsu, but I kind of feel like these two... I feel like Soken is getting very close to being on par quality-wise with Nobuo Uematsu. And I know that's a lofty argument or a lofty claim. I think Shadowbringers proves the point that I'm making. I think the music is so good at being emotionally manipulative They know the exact right song to play when the exact right dialogue is coming on screen, synced up exactly with something happening in like a scene, an action scene, or just simple dialogue. The music is phenomenal. I would strongly recommend, even if you don't want to play the game, go listen to the music, because the music is fucking great. But the main reason I play Final Fantasy XIV, and the reason why I like it now more than WoW, is because of the writing. Because, like I said, the writing is phenomenal. Everything about this expansion, Emet-Selch, the villain. I said this on Twitter, and I got some people who were like, wow, really? Just not from, like, they didn't believe me, but they hadn't played, and they were surprised I would say this. I think Emet-Selch is my new favorite Final Fantasy villain of all time. I think he has more depth as a character than Kefka or Sephiroth. I think he has a better emotional connection to the story than Kuja. I think his plan and why he's doing what he's doing is more interesting than, let's say, Seymour or even Jecht from Final Fantasy X, and that's my favorite game of all time. So that's, and I think he has a more logical and sensible plan than like Ultimecia, who it made no sense in Final Fantasy VIII. He's my new favorite Final Fantasy villain. He's a charming motherfucker. Another good quality point for the writing is that by the time you kill him, you understand why he's doing. You feel bad for him. You understand his motivation. And when a game, it doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen a lot, actually. And you would think this should be a prerequisite for having villains in video games. But a villain who you understand their motivation, you sympathize with them, while also still realizing that they're wrong, those are the villains that stand out. And those are the villains that you remember forever. Like, if you picture the most amazing video game villains in video game history. I'm not going to name any particular one because they're mostly subjective, but I think there are a couple that a lot of people just kind of genuinely agree is really good. I think a lot of people would say Sephiroth on that list, which I would harshly disagree with because I think he's one of the worst villains in the franchise, but whatever. But you remember those villains because they're sympathetic to a point. You understand why they're doing what they're doing. You can even understand in some way why they're doing what they're doing, while still recognizing what they're doing is wrong. Emet-Selch is such a great villain because you understand his desire to want to bring back his world and to bring back his people and bring back the ones he's lost and bring back the ones he's loved that are gone. You understand how someone who had to endure millennia of solitude as like an immortal being who knows that everyone else that he's loved and lived with and is friends with and his family with are all dead. You understand the way he is. You get why he wants to cause the rejoining, which, I mean, in the story, I think it a little bit implies that Emet-Selch is kind of in denial and he doesn't even know if his plan would actually work. But because he's in such despair and he's such a broken person at his core that this has to be what he does, because otherwise he's lived for hundreds of millions of years on his own, watching history unfold and knowing all the people he loved are gone for nothing. And it's by the time he dies, and in that final moment when he has the giant crater in his chest, and he tells the Warrior of Light, remember me, promise me that you will remember me and remember us and remember our people before dying. And you nod and he smirks and he fades away. That's amazing. It's like I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. And this is just the villain. I'm not even talking about the rest of the writing. Characters like Ardbert, who, voiced by Joe Dempsey, who plays Gendry in Game of Thrones. Or also Gaius, if you didn't know, is voiced by the actor whose name I don't know off the top of my head that plays Bruce Bolton in Game of Thrones. I didn't even mention this earlier, but the voice acting, I feel like the stereotype of Final Fantasy voice acting is that it's bad. I would argue since Heaven's Ward 2 expansions ago, it's been damn good, but in this one, it's fucking great. Ardbert is such a tragic character, and when you see at the end when you've beaten Emet-Selch and you return to the Crystarium, and this spirit locked in time, very similar to Emet-Selch, but he's only been this way for like 100 years. And he knows that the world has this false perception that him and his friends caused the apocalypse, which they kind of did, but they didn't know that they were doing it. They thought they were helping. And the fact that he had to live on as a ghost that no one could see or talk to, and just live with the fact that all of his friends are dead and the world hates his guts and they blame him for the apocalypse. When you see him at the end and he's walking back with you in spirit form and no one else can see him, and then he sees his friends who gave their lives to try and stop the apocalypse and were gone, but he was the one that remained. And when you see him walk up to them, it's just, God, it's you love those moments because the writing is fucking great. Because the writing is so good that you understand his plight. There's a cutscene like in the middle of the leveling experience where the Sin Eaters are attacking Lake Town, I believe. And he just has to sit there and watch as soldiers are just being annihilated by these monsters. And he can't do anything. He can't help them fight back. And he just stands there solemnly and just watches someone get murdered by a Sin Eater and can't do anything. Like, fuck me, dude. It's so good. The Scions are all written extremely well. I feel like for the first time maybe ever, characters like Y'shtola, who I've always kind of liked. I haven't liked Y'shtola as much as most fans, I think, like her. But in this one, they kind of made her interesting again because she became a little sassier. Like, she always kind of had like a low level of sass that she'd always be delivering in her lines. But now she's like delivering them left and right as she's talking. And it's like, it's a character where I'm like, you're kind of a bitch, but I fucking love you, Y'shtola. And like at the end of at the very end, when all of the Scions with you wash up on shore, and they're like, where's Urianger? He's not here with us. Canonically, they've established that he can't swim really well. So when they had to swim to escape, he's left behind. And Y'shtola's only comment is like, he'll show up at some point. Because the writer knows that a common fan opinion about Urianger is that he just kind of just shows up out of nowhere to deliver like plot important stuff. So the fact that the writer is so good to like call back to little fan reactions to things like that. Or when they talk about, Alphino, for example, can't swim either. And so they make it a big deal when you have to go underwater that him and Urianger are like, fuck. They don't have either of them say, we can't swim. You're just supposed to remember that from one expansion or 2 or 3 expansions ago when you found out that, they can't swim really well. Like, the story expects you to be smart and remember stuff from the story, which is what I think, among many other reasons, is one of the reasons why I think the story in 14 is 10, 15 times, 20 times better than WoW will ever be. Because WoW has like this weird incessant need to just keep reminding you about stuff you should remember already. Because Blizzard's chasing this pipe dream of thinking that new people are going to come into the game 20 years after it's been out. But in Final Fantasy XIV, the game's only been out, 5 years? And even then, the writing expects you to remember things. I mean, granted, if they're very minor things, they might remind you. But even stuff like Grahatia, who, is revealed to be the Crystal Exarch at the very end of the game. If you didn't do the quest chain in the vanilla game of the Crystal Tower, you lose out on dialogue with him. You lose out on a lot of emotional depth with his scenes. And you just don't get those. Like, it's not like the story has to be like, remember when you, 4 years ago, when you did this cutscene, or you did this quest line for this raid, well, it's the same guy. Like, they don't remind you for stuff like that. You just get that as a bonus for having done it, and remembering who he is. The game treats the player as smart, which is, amazing in this day and age. It blows me away how many little tidbits and callbacks to things, characters who 3 expansions ago made, the end game weapon for you when you hit max level at 50, shows back up here and does the same thing for you in this one. And he even makes a little offhand comment you don't remember me? I can't believe you don't remember me. And it's just, he doesn't say remember when I made your weapons for you? He just is annoyed that you can't remember him. You're just supposed to remember things, and when you do, the story rewards you for being smart. And it's such a refreshing change of pace. I've spent so long on this one little point because I feel like WoW and most other games don't do that. They'll spend the time to remind you again and again and again, which makes you feel like you're a 3-year-old getting told things 70 times. And it's just, all the dungeons are amazing. They're all very relevant to the plot, which was one of my criticisms with Even Heaven's Ward, which I thought was a phenomenal expansion. I would put Heaven's Ward and Mists of Pandaria on the same level for me, and Mists of Pandaria is my favorite expansion. So that's how my opinion of that is very high. But one of my criticisms of that expansion, where it felt like most of the dungeons weren't related to the main story, so I kind of felt like pointless doing them. Like, I mean, they were fun, but I wanted it to tie back into the overall narrative. And in this one, every single dungeon that you do when you're leveling up and through the main story are all related to the main story. I just found out that having finished the main story now, there are 2 more dungeons that are out. I haven't done them yet. I heard that they're the best ones yet, so I don't know. Apparently one of them is kind of themed after Final Fantasy XIII, from what I've heard. And the music is supposed to be the best out of all the dungeons, so I guess we'll see. But, oh man, my notes are... I don't have my notes. I don't really have notes. If you don't play Final Fantasy 14, they have dungeons, which are 4-man parties. Then they have trials, which are basically one boss dungeons, like one boss raids. Basically, you just go in and you fight them and you're done. And they're always relevant to the main story, like an important story beat. So, for example, in this one you have Titania, who is the first trial at level 73. You know, she's the Light Warden of Emet-Selch, so she's very relevant to the story because you're killing the Light Wardens. The second one is Innocence at level 77, the final Light Warden, again, tied to the main story. The third one is Emet-Selch, who, you know, at the very end of the game is revealed to be Hades. And he's the final trial and the final thing you do in the game. Again, very relevant to the story. But the 3 trials are just... They're so involved as boss fights. They're so in-depth. There's so many mechanics, even on the normal version, that they're great. I see many people, well, I've seen some people, criticize Final Fantasy XIV by saying, you know, dungeons and raids and trials are not hard. There's, like, no difficulty to them, and they kind of give points to WoW for mythic bosses being hard. But here's the thing. The bosses in 14 could be tuned to how Mythic is tuned, but, I mean, let's be honest, Mythic is tuned so that you can't just fight and beat Jaina Proudmoore the first day the Battle of Dazar'alor comes out. Like, statistically and numerically, it's impossible for you to do that with the gear you have when it opens up. It's not that the fights are any particular amount of difficulty that people will never be able to figure them out. The fights are hard, don't get me wrong, but they're not strategically impossible. They're numerically impossible. 14 could do that very easily if they wanted to with their ultimate versions, because they do basically have hard mode of all their bosses. It's the ultimate versions. And even the ultimate versions, I would say, are not as hard as Mythic bosses. But again, because if 14 wanted to, they could lock progression behind that through gear, like WoW does. But they don't. They make them hard strategically, and they're hard numerically, but they're not impossible numerically, like I would argue most Mythic bosses are until you've gotten some Mythic gear. But excuse me. But 14 could do that if they wanted to. They just choose not to, which is something I really, really appreciate. So, if you're really interested in doing hard boss fights in 14, you can do them. Like, ultimate versions of, I don't know, Omega from the last expansion were fucking crazy. They're like 20-minute boss fights with like 50 mechanics. So the idea that I would ever hear someone say, bosses in Final Fantasy XIV are just too easy and too boring. It's just like, well, it's an argument that someone either is making purposefully ignorant, like they know that they're wrong and they're just saying it to troll, or they legitimately just don't know. Because it's just blatantly not true. Yeah, so the game is great. Can I say that any more ways? I'm looking through some of my tweets because I kind of live tweeted my way through it. Much I probably assume to the dismay of people who follow me on Twitter when you see me constantly posting Shadowbringers things. But I mean, I would give it a shot. Like I don't understand people who are like, I'm loyal to WoW and I will never play anything else. I know that I'm not going to like it even though I've never played it once. It's like, what? Why are you loyal to you should be loyal to quality, to something that's good, to something that deserves your money, not just blind loyalty to a product. I wish I knew this the first, 12 years of my fandom in Warcraft that I was blindly loyal to, that I would be excusing everything for. But I woke up, I came out of the Matrix in midway between Warlords and Legion. And, if the game becomes good again, I'll play it again. But if it's not, I won't. I'll spend my money on another good thing like this. Play good things. You can play this as a trial game all the way up to level 35. That's more than halfway to level max of vanilla. For free. Why not? It's free, do it. If you want to, you can buy the current expansion, which gives you all the content for $40. The whole game. What's not to lose? Try it out. It's not for everybody. Sure, it's not for everybody, but that's why the trial is free. I will just say, if I know some people really hate that I hate on WoW now. I think I do it for a just reason, to be honest. But it's worth looking into Shadowbringers because I think it's a better Final Fantasy game than almost all of the other Final Fantasy games. And to be honest, even though I would recommend not doing this, but the way that Shadowbringers is written, you could basically just jump into Shadowbringers and play the whole thing and have almost as rich of an experience as someone like me who've played the whole game. I would recommend not doing that, but you can buy skips just to get to the current content if you want. I wouldn't, namely because I think Heaven's Ward is fucking amazing and you should play it. Stormblood's also pretty good. Stormblood's probably my least favorite of the expansions, but when you have an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, saying 8 out of 10 is your least favorite, it's still a good expansion. But Heaven's Ward, for sure, I would recommend playing. And, Shadowbringers is fantastic. I would give it a 10 out of 10. That's what I consider it. I left when I sat there after I finished everything and the game was like, okay, you're done. I just had to sit there for 5 minutes. Well, at first I had to wipe my face because I was crying like a baby. And then I kind of just sat there. And I think everyone experiences this at least once if you're a fan of video games, where you finish a game that you just loved so much that you kind of just have to sit there almost comatose for a couple minutes just to digest it. And I know everyone's felt that for something. And it's a great feeling. It's amazing. It's something that you unabashedly love from beginning to end. And your reward for your faith and your fandom is not disappointed. And you just love it until it's over. And then you're sad that it's over because you can't experience it again. It's an amazing feeling. And I could say the biggest reason I would say to play this game, it gave me that feeling. And I haven't felt that way about games in a long time. So, God, I'm getting choked up. I want to talk more about the game, but I don't want to give away all the plot points, even though I've given away most of them already. But experience that, because I want all of you who are watching this to have that moment like I did, where I finished it and I was just like, maybe the world's not terrible. Maybe everything's good. Because this was my favorite thing I've done in years. And I just absolutely loved it and adored it from beginning to end. And I want all of you to experience that. So, that's my completely unhinged rant about why I love this game. I don't know why I was doing this. I was trying to think of the word that meant, unfocused, but I couldn't think of unfocused, so I was like, this means unfocused, right? Because I had no, set path when I was making the video. I just finished it last night, and then I woke up today still thinking about it, and I was like, I want to make a video because I know tomorrow probably is going to be an Ajara cinematic, and I want to have this video out by Monday, so. That was my video on Shadowbringers. Play it, buy it, support the game, because you should reward games when they're good, so you can tell the company, this was good, make more things like this. Don't do it like other games, where you're just like, well, I've been playing it for 15 years, I might as well just keep playing it and supporting it, because then the company will just give you more of what you don't like already. Not just talking about WoW, I was obviously there, but, many other examples, like Fallout. All the people who love the Fallout franchise like me, but still bought 76, you're feeding a machine that's reinforcing bad development habits. So don't do it. If you support good things with your money, the next thing hopefully should be good. And if it's not, don't pay it for it. Don't buy it. Play this game. Support this company. Support Square Enix. Support Yoshi P, the developer. Because he fucking saved that entire company after Final Fantasy XIV first came out and crashed and burned. And then he came in and saved it and revamped the whole game. And has been at the helm since then, making the best MMO content that has ever been made for the last 3 expansions. And he should be rewarded for that, and the company should be rewarded for that. Also, if you love the Final Fantasy franchise, the success of this game saved the company so that you could get 13.3 and 15 and 16. The company was going under until Final Fantasy XIV came back to life and saved it because of one man, the head developer, Yoshi P. Support this game because you should. Because it's good, because the message is great, because the story behind it is fantastic, because the development team is fucking great and cares about the game actually, and sees it as a passion project and not another fucking money-making scheme. What other reasons do you need? Play this game, support this game, love this game. Come back to me if you finished it and let me know what you thought. It's fantastic. It's my favorite gaming experience in years. It's my favorite game of the year so far. I think it's the best video game story I've played all year. The best music that I've heard in any video game all year. What happened, Square Enix, with Kingdom Hearts 3 when you got this? How did you get this in Kingdom Hearts 3 from the same company? What the fuck happened? Because, damn. And hey, the Kingdom Hearts 3 developer is developing the raid in this game. So, all the good people are coming to 14 because they want to be part of it. Including the Nier people. The Nier people are doing a raid in this game as well. The company who developed Nier sent their developer to work on an Alliance raid, which is a 24-man raid. Which hasn't come out yet, but will be. But it's set around the Nier Automata franchise. So, try it. Why not? The first part of the raid, developed by Tetsuya Nomura behind Kingdom Hearts 3 and Kingdom Hearts, comes out in 2 weeks. So, if you buy it now, and you play now, and you buy a month subscription now, 2 weeks from now, when you're done, hopefully, with Shadowbringers, you can play that. I'm sure it's going to be great. I'll resubscribe again, because my sub's about to run out just to play it. So, okay. Thanks, guys. If you watched this far and didn't just get butthurt and downvote the video because I'm talking about why this game's better than WoW, kudos to you. Thank you for watching. Support good games. Don't support bad games. Support quality, not companies who are billion-dollar companies who don't care about anything but your money. So support games that are good, not just games because you like the company. And that's my message. So, and that's how I feel about Shadowbringers. And that's why you should play it, and you should buy it, and you should support it. See you guys next time. See you tomorrow for the Ajara cinematic, which probably will be out as soon as the servers go up. But until then, stay awesome. And yeah, farewell. Be prepared to cry, by the way, if you're attached to good stories and you play this, because you're going to cry a lot.